What's up everyone, welcome back. It's time to continue our breakdown videos for Street Fighter 6. Capcom has just finished releasing all their official developer matches, which is great. We got a lot of content to talk about here. These matches are played by the internal testers, so the matches are much higher level than we're used to seeing. There's a lot of info here, so we're going to break down one character at a time. If you guys missed out, we already broke down Marisa. You can find that video already uploaded on our channel. Today we're going to discuss JP, because he seems like a pretty complicated character and there's a lot to talk about with him. So let's get started. So right at the start of the match, we see JP do a perfect parry on Blanca's jump in, and then he converts it from, looks like a crouching medium punch, gets a punish counter from that, and then converts that target combo we saw back on that Twitter clip mirror. And then he cancels it into the Chernobog, which is that when he hits you with the staff and knocks you away.
Clearly, there's extra frame advantage when you score a punish counter. In this case, yeah, like you mentioned, he links from crouching medium punch into target combo. I assume this is a fast target combo as opposed to the other one, which we also know is cancelable. That starts from probably like medium kick or a heavy kick. So this is better for combos.
And then when he knocks Blanca away, he sets the departure. Those are those riffs you guys see at the top of the screen. He sets the departure down, and once again, if you guys didn't watch our last breakdown, it's set on a timer. So after a certain amount of time, a spike is going to fly out of that rift, and it's like a thorn. And JP can freely move while these departures are set. So he does another projectile. This is the tree glove, we think it's called. And that's when that spike erupts from under the ground. And it's like a spiky pillar, and it seems to go quite high, Mir. Like, I think that if the opponent anticipated this and tried to neutral jump it, I think they would still get hit.
Yeah, it's very, very possible. It probably doesn't have much horizontal coverage. And I guess another thing that is worth mentioning, going back to the departure that you talked about, JP gets access to the ability to teleport to it at any point before it blows up. So the threat of the tree glove or the teleport is considerable even from a range.
Right. And since it's on a timer and it detonates, you don't have full control. It might sound bad, but it's actually really good because it's kind of like a set it and forget it kind of thing. And it kind of will cover JP because let's say Blanca was able to get out of that tree glove situation, then the thorn coming out of the departure would cover JP. You know, while he's still actively being able to move. Now we get to see JP's crouching medium kick, and I think this is worth noting, Mir, because it looks pretty stubby in general, and it doesn't look cancelable like most crouching medium kicks are, but I'm pretty sure this means it's going to be something where it's plus on block, you know? Something like Colleen or Cody, for example, in Street Fighter 5, and this would be something really good. We see later on in the footage that he drive rush cancels into this. So right now, a similar character in Street Fighter 6 would be like Kimberly, for example, her crouching medium kick.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see because as we know, plus frames are really difficult to come by in Street Fighter 6.
Yeah.
Especially on a character like JP, which seems to be more like of a zoner long range kind of character. So to have a crouching medium kick that is plus on block would be very, very valuable. You mentioned how the move is a little bit stubby, but to be fair, he does move forward slightly, and he is quite a tall character, so the range might be pretty decent compared to other shorter characters.
Okay, next up we see what we think is the medium version of JP's Fireball. It goes horizontal, it's fast, but it seems to have no range. Now, to be honest, guys, we're a little confused by this because later on you're going to see this go further, so we're not quite sure, but we'll talk more about that when we get to that. The OD version in particular, Mir, it goes really far and it hits twice, and it's active for a really long time.
Yeah, we see it in this situation hit Blanca out of the air, and that gives JP enough time to follow up with something, in this case, Tree Glove. And we see later on that he even gets time to follow up on block because the hits are so staggered.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you know that tree glove, the spike coming out of the ground, it's a really fast projectile because it doesn't need to travel, right? It goes from the position of where the opponent is. So you're going to see JP juggling into this tree glove a lot.
It's a lot like Nikoli's Seismo, except that one that had very poor vertical range. It was very easy to jump over.
Yeah.
But this one looks like it doesn't have that issue. Yeah.
Now, when you add all the things we just talked about together, JP, like, even though he's this crazy zoner, he can be mobile because we see the teleport, and then when he teleports in, Blanca parries, by the way, because he's like, I don't want to deal with this, you know? Because I know which direction he's going to get hit from. And then, like you said, the OD version, when they're in block stun, it just gives JP so much time to act, and he's setting down departures. Like, you would think on these moves alone, it'd be hard for JP to set these traps up, but they're not because he recovers so quickly. And these are so active. These projectiles are so active on the screen.
Right. It's very possible that JP will be very oppressive from range and maybe just a little bit weaker on defense, as the normals that we see, they seem to have decent range, but they're all quite slow.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you'll have trouble contesting when people are very close to him. But from afar, he seems definitely quite scary.
Yeah. Okay, this next part, when we see him use that standing heavy kick as an anti-air, I was like, whoa! He does a standing heavy kick anti-air. By the way, it looks really good as a mid-range anti-air, like if they were jumping from
Yeah.
far away, because it's got good horizontal range. And we saw this heavy kick before, actually, in the old trailer. It does 2 hits, I think. So we only see like the last hit of this. And then JP converts into a drive rush and still does damage further.
Right, we see him go into what we think is a standing medium punch, and then cancels that into heavy Chernobog, as the startup on this move seems quite massive. And we see that it wall bounces Blanca on the wall. He then follows up with the overhead fireball into a tree glove. So this combo is really long and quite damaging. Even considering the extra scaling from the drive rush, it was still a pretty chunky end tier.
The heavy Chernobog and the overhead fireball both have pretty big startups, so the fact that he actually combos into both these moves is crazy. The wall bounce is a little different than something like a Ryu donkey kick, because the opponent doesn't bounce too far back towards JP. So it's kind of a wall splat almost. The fact that you can deal this much damage conversion from just an anti-air and push the opponent this far back and then set up afterwards is really scary. I mean, a zoner needs equally as good anti-airs, to keep it up. And so it looks like Capcom made sure that JP is very threatening.
And I guess another thing that we can understand from this situation is that if you're trying to jump away from his fireballs and you end up getting hit in the air, for example, by the overhead, this could happen from a jump back, for example. You would still get comboed with a tree glove, so you have to be pretty careful how you deal with those fireballs.
Yeah, this character looks so fun to play. Okay, so we see a new move here, and this one I'm really confused by. So it seems that JP does a reversal OD version of this counter attack move, and JP counters Blanca, the screen freezes or time freezes, but it doesn't seem like JP is plus enough to get a counter hit or a punish counter on Blanca, and the counter itself doesn't do any damage either.
Right, it's peculiar because as a counter, it actually freezes time. It's not just hit stop, it takes quite a long time before it starts up. And we see this explosive ball form up and go after Blanca. It has 2 hits, and it's probably because it's the overdrive version. And we see that the JP player uses that to cross him up and manage to hit him with a hard to block situation. But it's peculiar that it just doesn't guarantee a punish, especially on a medium, right? It wasn't even a light. So I'm curious if it would be possible to maybe option select this in a way where you would still be plus even if you get parried.
Yeah, like you said, it wasn't like Blanca was doing a quick light attack. You're spending bar for this move as well. I guess maybe they felt like JP having a reversal that gave you instant damage would be too strong. Still, JP can get a lot of bonus damage if he mixes you up afterwards for a reset or whatever, right? Because these projectiles look really slow, and it looks like the opponent has to deal with it immediately. So that looks quite good.
Especially because we see that in this situation, even though he didn't get the punish, he still managed to side switch to the other side. Unfortunately, he doesn't get the conversion to maintain the corner, but it would be very, very scary if it were able to, because then he's completely reversed the situation in his advantage by putting you in the corner.
There's so many questions about this move. Like, what does the normal counter do? And does it counter overheads and lows? Like, does it just counter every direction, like a parry? And
it's possible that the overdrive version covers everything, but the normal one might have to be direction specific.
Right. Like, what if the opponent was doing a fireball on you and you tried using this counter on it? Would it spawn the slow moving orb? It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
And does the orb itself count as a projectile? Because if it was active on the screen, would JP be able to do his other projectiles while it's active? Yeah, I'm really scratching my head over this one. I got so many questions about it. It seems to almost confirm that every character will indeed have some type of reversal option in Street Fighter 6. So I want to know more about the properties of this move. Okay, so afterwards, we see Blanca do a Blanca ball, and JP responds with a crouching heavy punch, it looks like. And man, this looks like an amazing anti-air. Like, I immediately thought Poison. Poison's crouching medium punch, the same type of vibe I'm getting. Another good anti-air for JP.
We see later that this is cancelable.
Yeah,
so
it looks good.
It lets JP set up all kinds of crazy situations, especially because he has remember guys, he has a low and an overhead fireball. So you have to deal with that.
Okay. So now we see the level 2 super. And this is another crazy thing. So JP snaps his fingers and he seems to set 4 departures at the same time surrounding the opponent at each angle, the top left, top right, bottom right. And they detonate one after the other. It isn't at the same time. And it seems like JP is able to just freely act during this. This is a crazy utility super.
Right, it's interesting because instead of being the spikes that normally come out of the departure, it's those little shadow demons that he uses as his fireballs.
Hmm.
So they have some travel time, which
Yeah.
is probably so that the opponent can have a chance to escape this. But if JP locks you down with normals, or if he manages to hit you, he can probably get some very beefy combos going on here, as the stagger between each attack gives him, a lot of time to fill in with whatever he has. For 2 bars, this seems like a really big opportunity to get a lot of damage, or in general, chip at your drive gauge.
It's too bad that Blanca just dies right away. Like I'm wondering
Mhm.
if this everything just naturally will combo, like all of those hits from each of those departures.
This move seems to have very little recovery, as JP, after the cancel, is able to block the drive impact.
Yeah, this seems like one of those supers that if you want to use it, you can just use it at any time during the match, and you're probably gonna get some value out of it. This is like V trigger level stuff, Mir. This looks oppressive. So I want to mention the next round, we do see JP. He has a cross up. It looks like his jumping medium kick, which is good because if he's teleporting, especially from the air, it's good that he has a cross up to make sure he's always able to hit his opponent, right? If they're like moving while he's doing it.
It seems pretty good. Like downward hitting jumping attack reminds me a lot of Zangief's jumping medium kick, except it also has a cross up hitbox.
Zangief, who's that?
We'll see him soon enough, I hope.
We'll see. Then we see JP try this cheeky setup where he does a raw drive rush into an overhead. And the overhead looks surprisingly close to Seth's animation.
It reminds me a lot of G's overhead as well. And I'm sure that a lot of people are already trying to find the similarities between the two characters because,
Mhm.
of the names being just letters.
Yeah, they all have big
Uh,
characters. It goes without saying that a trap-based character, Mirror, that can lock you down with a lot of fast recovering projectiles, an overhead would be a great addition to JP's
mhm.
repertoire.
Absolutely. Even if he didn't have the normal overhead, he still has the fireball, and we know that he seems to have an overhead in one of his target combos, so he's definitely not lacking in that regard.
Right. It's too bad that Blanca does a reversal because I'm kind of curious what the next combo would be after he landed that overhead.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. Okay, now at the start of the next round, we see JP start off right away with an OD tree glove, and 2 spikes sprout out from under the ground, and it's really fast, and they're a lot bigger and they go a lot higher. So I think this is a really good way to start the round, actually, because you already built tons of space between you and your opponent with JP.
Yeah, the pushback on block is pretty insane, and the horizontal coverage seems quite good too. So this might work effectively as a long range anti-air for someone that's jumping from full screen if you're fast enough.
I
And I'm
wonder what it
curious.
would look like if it hit though. Like if it juggle Blanca up really high, maybe you could do like a regular tree glove afterwards, or
Mhm.
use for more just combo filler. But yeah, this looks really strong.
Right, and I'm interested to see how this would interact with other fireballs. If the spike that comes out of the ground hits the enemy projectile, or
Oh
if he
yeah,
will have to use his normal fireball to deal with other fireball characters instead.
right. That's a good point because, like you mentioned, it's kind of similar to Nakali. So JP dealing with other zoners, he's got a lot of tools as well. Now, right after this is where we got really confused. JP sends out a long range version of what we thought was the medium version of his fireball because we're kind of confused because our theory is that he's got 2 different fireballs. One is the light version hits low, the medium version hits straight but doesn't go very far, and the heavy version is an overhead. And then he's got this unblockable fireball. But now we're seeing what we thought was the medium version go really far. So what's going on here?
We can tell that it's the same move as the low and the overhead fireball because of the animation. We see that JP moves his hand a certain way when he does that kind of fireball.
Mm-hmm.
But when he does the short version, the one that doesn't go very far, it is much quicker in recovery. So I'm curious how you perform that move. I'm not sure if the short one is its own unique input, or maybe to get the long range version, you have to hold them, or if there's some other trick, you know.
I want to mention the crouching medium kick again. JP uses a drive rush, and once again, it looks very plus on block, and I think that's, you know, the upside because you can't cancel from it, it seems. So you use it similarly to like Kimberly. So I think this is really good if JP wants to mount an offense.
I'm curious if it is cancelable into supers only, maybe, which could be potentially pretty effective if he can cancel into his level 2 and then convert from there.
That's a good point, yeah. Let's talk about this crouching heavy punch again here. We see him anti-air, but we know it's cancelable now. He goes into the overhead fireball. Just like such a good setup after an anti-air.
Yeah, I'm sure you have to be quite aware to be able to block the mix-up there, which is why we see the Blanca player just parry his way out of the situation, which is probably a very smart thing to do.
Hey, he would still lose if he went into the unblockable fireball from the crouching heavy punch.
That's true. There's just so much stuff that he could do, right? Even if he didn't want to do the fireball, he could set up a departure, and it probably would still be able to cover him a little bit. Just getting anti-aired, even though the reward necessarily isn't very high immediately, it potentially can set up a very good situation for JP.
Yes. So speaking of which, we do finally see the unblockable fireball being used. He uses it when Blanca jumps in, which is smart because Blanca will have less time to react once he touches the floor. And you can see that JP has a distinct different animation with his hand when he does this projectile.
Even then, considering how many projectiles have been thrown out during the entirety of this match, to keep an eye out and look for this unblockable fireball, it's gonna be tricky. The animation is distinct, but you know it could get lost in the multitude of fireballs that are being thrown at you. So you always have to keep an eye out for it. The damage is not too high, but it is unblockable, like you mentioned. So
it's gonna be so annoying online. Like JP players are gonna abuse this so much until people get like really conditioned by it. So those are all the highlights, guys, from this match. Like I think we learned a lot. You know, I pretty much have the same thoughts on JP at this point. I think he's a complicated character. You need to manage many different projectiles and know, and they're all very flexible and have multi-purpose uses. So you're gonna have to know what to use at what the right time. And I'm just very surprised when you see a proficient JP player playing. Just how good JP recovers on all these moves and how active they are on the screen. He can really set you up fast on one mistake.
Yeah, the thing that I find very interesting, since you were mentioning the OD version of his moves, is that a lot of moves have these staggered hits that give a lot of time for JP to follow up with whatever it is, right? It could be either maybe the teleport from the departure, or setting up another fireball, or setting up the departure itself, moving in, moving away, jumping out, jumping in. You know, there's just so many options.
He's got good anti-airs, good defensive moves. He's got a counter if you need something in a pinch. He can set you up after he anti-airs you. He always has a moment where he can set those departures. And if you guys pay attention, the Blanca's drive meter, it's draining the whole match. Like every time he's blocking all of these tree gloves, these thorns, like it's really limiting the opponent's options if they stay blocking too long. And then you still have an unblockable fireball to worry about the entire time. So if you guys want, like, for the third time, I'm asking you guys, if you guys are interested in this evil zoner JP, this complicated zoner, I'm like, this character is going to be right up your alley. I cannot wait to see this character in tournaments. So, Mira, we got our work cut out for us. We got a lot more breakdowns now. We're going to be breaking down one character at a time, guys. So expect them soon. Let us know who you guys want us to cover next, and but we'll eventually break them all down, and this will give us something to do until Capcom Cup mid-February. So stay tuned, guys, and thanks for taking the time to watch the video. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Bye bye.